Hey everybody, welcome to this video on Python tutorial for beginners. I am Elton from Edureka, and in this video I will teach you how to code in Python end to end. Python has been ranked the #1 programming language in TOB Index and has been used by some of the largest companies in the tech industry like Pinterest, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, etc. So you looking to learn Python might just be the best decision you've ever made. If you love watching videos like this, then consider hitting the like button and subscribe to our channel. You can also hit the bell icon to receive regular updates from here. You should know that Edureka also has a lot of training programs and certification courses on their site. So if you are interested in them, do check out the links given in the description. Since this video caters Python for beginners, I think it is important that we start with what is Python. Python is an easy to learn, powerful programming language. It has efficient high-level data structures and a simple but effective approach to object-oriented programming. Python's elegant syntax and dynamic typing, together with its interpreted nature, make it an ideal language for scripting and rapid application development in many areas on most platforms. And with that, we can see why we use Python, right? The #1 point would be the applications. Python is a very versatile programming language ranging from application development to web design, game design, UI UX development, data science, machine learning, automation, etc. There's also the point of simplified syntax. If you usually work with languages like Java, C++, etc., you'll get me. Python is one of the simplest languages you can learn, and this fact doesn't impact any of the features. It is just as good as all the other options that you have, and the only thing is it's a lot simpler. The third point is well-built packages. Now don't worry if you don't know what packages are. I'll cover that later. The only thing that you need to know right now is that packages have the ability to replace hundreds of lines of code with just a single line of code. I'll show you how to do that later in this video. And the fourth point that I want to stress on is the highly supportive community. Look, I get it. Programming is not always easy and you get stuck sometimes. But with Python's community, you get a lot of support for the issues that you face, and I'm telling you, it's one of the most engaging and interactive communities that I've ever come across. Now, I think it's about time that we get started. I do want you to know that this video will be a hands-on session, and I want you to keep your computer ready and follow along with this tutorial. To get started with Python, you will need two things. The first thing is Python itself, which is an application that you install in your computer so that your computer knows how to interact and understand Python. The second thing you will need is a code editor or an IDE. There are a lot of code editors that you can come across, like Vim, VS Code, Sublime Text, Eclipse, Spyder, PyCharm, etc. In this video, we will be working with the Anaconda distribution. Now, I have chosen this because it's the easiest one with which you can set up your Python ecosystem. To install Anaconda distribution, all you need to do is open up your browser and then type download Anaconda. Now once you are here, just follow the first link. If you are not able to find this link, then just follow the URL given above, anaconda.com/products/distribution. The installation procedure doesn't really change for any operating system. You can follow the same procedure for Windows, Mac, Linux, etc. So once you're here, just click download and save. Now once downloaded, just click on the file and open it up. Now once you are here, just follow the steps given by the application itself. You don't really need to do any other settings, just follow what's given in the application. I recommend that you install Anaconda to the path provided by the software itself because this makes it easier for the files to interact with each other. You can just follow along the steps and just make sure that this checkbox is always checked. Register Anaconda 3 as my default Python 3.9. What this does is that when you install any other code editors or IDEs, they will be able to recognize the Python that is installed by Anaconda in your system. After all this, you just need to click install and then it will start installing Anaconda to your system. Now the installation might take some time, But once this is done, just finish this up and then open up the Start menu and type Anaconda Navigator. Once you have it, open it up and there you have it, Anaconda Navigator for Windows. Over here, you can see the collection of IDEs and code editors that you get with Anaconda Navigator. You also have your environments where you can manage your packages, your educational videos, and also a community to support your growth. In this video, we will be using Jupyter Notebook. And to use that, all you need to do is click Launch over here. Now you can think of this view as a file directory where you can create files, navigate through files, and even delete files. So right now, what I'm doing is going to the desktop folder and then I am clicking on New and Python 3. So what this does is that it creates a new file in my desktop folder to run my Python code. After that, I just want you to do a simple program. It's just one line, alright? Simply type print, all in small letters, and then open brackets, round brackets, and then single or double quotes, and then type some message. I'm typing hello world, and then we can run it by clicking on this button over here, or you can do shift plus enter, and it will show you your message. If you've gotten till here, then congratulations because you just created your first Python project. In this section, we will see what variables and data types are in Python. Variables are nothing but values that are temporarily stored in your computer's memory. Let me show you how to do this. To begin with a variable, you first type the variable's name, like for example, say age. And then what you do is, you assign it a value, like 40. So in the statement, what you're doing is you are assigning the value 40 to a variable name called age. Now, if you run this, again with the run button or shift plus enter, then you can see in the left hand side that this statement has been executed. And now, if you want to access the value of age anywhere in your code in the future, you can just type age and it will give you the result. Now, while you have declared a value for your variable, you should also remember that this value can be updated in the future. For example, say now I say age equals to 50 and I execute the statement. Then if I come back to our second statement, just age, you can see that the execution gives me the result 50. This means that age has been updated. So it's a good idea to always keep track of all the updated variables in your code. Let us continue by declaring a few more variables. Let's say temperature equal to 35.8. In Python, you can declare floating point variables, which is nothing but numbers with a decimal point, and also whole numbers. You can also type something like name equal to Edureka, and you can see over here that I have surrounded it with quotes. The reason why I do this is because whenever you write string values or sequence of characters, Python requires you to surround it with quotes, either double or single. This will help Python recognize the entire sequence of characters as a single entity. You also have some other kinds of data types like Boolean values. Now, Boolean values are nothing but, for example, you can say is offline equal to false. Now, one thing that you should know is that Python is case sensitive. Notice what happens if I replace the capital F with a small. See, it is not being highlighted anymore. This is because Python doesn't recognize this as a keyword anymore. It thinks of this as a name. So always remember to be aware of the case-sensitive keywords while coding in Python. You might also notice that I have used an underscore while declaring the keyword. This is just to make the code more readable. Notice what happens if I take off this underscore. It's not that readable, right? So, whenever you code in Python, always make sure that you enhance readability for anyone else who might access your code. Now, there are three types of values in Python. You have numbers, you have strings, and you have Boolean. Now, there are times where you will need to convert one type of data to another. Let me show you how. So you can see from our previous declarations, we have age equal to 50, which is a whole number. We have temp equal to 35.8, which is a decimal point number, you have a string, which is a collection of characters, and then you have a Boolean value over here. If you want to check the data type of all these variables, what you will need to do is say type, open brackets, and then type the variable name. If you execute this statement, then you will see that age is an integer data type. You can do the same for temp, and you can see that it returns float, which is a floating point variable. This just means that there is a decimal point in that number. You can also type name, which returns string. Now, string is represented as str or str in Python, and then you have your final variable, which is offline, which is a Boolean data type. Let's just get this out of the way now and try a few things. What if I want to convert age into a floating point variable? Doing this is very simple. What you need to do is type the name of the data type you want to convert it into, and then you open brackets, and then you type the variable name. So now you have converted age into a floating point value. You can see the decimal point over here. This concept is helpful in many situations. For example, if I want to say print age of xyz is plus age and execute the statement, you will see a type error. Can only concatenate str, not int to str. What this means is the data type string can be only concatenated or connected to another string. Python doesn't understand how to connect numbers with strings. Solving this is super easy. All you need to do is go over here and then say str of age. This will convert age into string and will allow Python to connect these two strings. Now, if we execute this statement, you can see that it is successfully executed. Now, with this, I have an exercise for you. I want you to collect the birth year of a particular individual, and using that information, I want you to find out his age. You can pause the video over here, take a few minutes, and then come back and see what the solution is. Now, you must have gotten stuck while receiving input, right? Doing this is super easy in Python. What you need to do is type input and then open brackets, and inside those brackets, you can give any message to your user. For example, enter your birth year. Now, obviously, you will need to store this in a variable, right? So let's just save it under birth year. Now, if we run this statement, Python will ask you to enter the input for your birth year variable. Now, I was born in 1998, so let me just type that, and then I'll press enter. After this, we will need to subtract the current year with the birth year, right? Now, the current year is 2023 minus the birth year. Now, let's just execute this, and oops, we've got a type error. Unsupported operand types for int and str. Now let's try to break down this error. Let's check the data type of birth year. Type birth year. You can see over here that birth year has been declared as a string, right? That's what's causing the problem. You're trying to subtract integer with strings. Now we can currently understand that birth year is a number, but Python isn't able to do that. So what you need to do is tell Python that this is an integer, and then if you execute this and type in the same values again, you will be able to get your answer. Now let's try to make this a bit more readable. First thing we need to do is assign this to a variable. So let's just say age equal to this expression, and we'll execute this again. And after that, we can say print age of xyz plus age. Now if we execute this statement, we again get an error. This is again a type error and can concatenate strings with strings, not int with strings, right? So again, we will need to convert this into a string data type so Python is able to correctly read the data. So let's execute this, and then you can see age of xyz is 25. In this tutorial, I will teach you how to do some cool operations using strings in Python. To do this, the first thing we will need to do is declare a string variable called title equal to Python for beginners. Now, after executing this statement, I want you to remember a few things. The first thing is that when you declare a string in Python, it is treated as an object. You can think of objects like real-world objects. Think of a car. A car is an object, and this object has a few functionalities to it, right? It can go forward, it can go backward, it can go sideways, it can honk, it can turn on the lights, etc. Strings are also the same. If you type title dot and press your tab button, you can see a list of functions. These functions are similar to like print, input, etc. The only difference is that print, input, etc. are general purpose functions, meaning that they don't belong to a particular object. And these functions belong to the object called string. Now, calling them functions isn't really the right terminology. When a function belongs to a particular object, you refer to them as methods. So all these methods that are listed over here belong to the object string. Now let us just pick an option called isLower over here. And if you execute this, you can see that it returns false. This means that our string is not completely in the lower case. So you have another method to do that. You can type title dot lower, and if you execute this now, you can see that all the individual characters have been converted to the smaller case letters. Now, if you type dot is lower continuing this, then you can see that it returns true. You also have other methods like title dot upper, which returns all of the characters in uppercase letters. You also have other interesting methods for strings in Python like title.find, which will help you find a particular character or a sequence of characters in your string. Like say if I say y in quotes, then it will return the value 1. You see 1 over here is the index of the first occurrence of this character. Now, the way indexing works in Python is simple. You start from 0 and then you continue with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So when I say find the first occurrence of y, what it means is that the index that is returned is number 1. Now, you can also find the index for a sequence of characters like say for, and you can see that it has returned 7 over here. If you go back over here, you can see the f character starts at 7, and that is where the sequence of characters start from. There's also some other interesting methods that you can use over here. For example, you can try replace to replace one word for another, like say for example for with for, and then you can see that the string has changed right now. Python for beginners. You should remember that these statements don't really make any changes to your original string. So if you go ahead and type title again, then the result of it would be your original string. If you want to save your modifications, then you will need to save your edits into a new variable. Now for the find expression that we talked about earlier, there is another replacement for it. For example, you can type print for in title, and this will show you the boolean value of your result. Like this sequence of characters does not exist in your variable. But if I change this to the small case, and now if I change it into something that is in the variable, then obviously it will return true. This kind of result is desirable in a lot of cases. Now, in this tutorial, we will be seeing the arithmetic operators in Python. Now, these are the same arithmetic operators that you find in math. For example, you can add numbers, subtract them, multiply them, and so on. So, let's just quickly do 10 plus 3, and you can see that the result is 13. This operator over here is called the addition operator, which adds two numbers. You also have the subtraction, which subtracts 3 from 10. You have the multiply, which is an asterisk, which multiplies 10 by 3, 30. And then you have the division. And technically, there's two types of division. One is a single slash, and the other one is a double slash. Notice what happens. When we did the single slash, we got a floating point value, right? But if you try a double slash, it will give you a whole number. After that, we have the modulus operator, which gives you the remainder of 10 divided by 3, which is 1. So we also have the option to make powers of something. For example, if you want to say 10 to the power 3, then you can put in 2 asterisks, and then if you execute it, you will get the result of 10 to the power 3. Now, for all these operators that you saw, we also have something called as augmented assignment. Let me show you what that means. So up until now, if you had to do something with arithmetic operators, you would have done something like this, right? X equal to 10, x equal to x plus 3, and then you would type print x. Now, there's nothing wrong with you executing your code like this, but you are taking a bit more memory when you do it like this, because in this statement over here, you are loading x 2 times, right? So a simpler way to do this would be to say x equal to plus equal to 3. Now, this new statement is exactly the same as the old statement. Only difference is it's a lot simpler to write and it's faster. Alright, now let me ask you a question. Suppose I set x equal to 10 plus 5 into 2. What is the answer? Unfortunately, a lot of people get this wrong. The answer to this is 20. The reason for this is because mathematics has something called as operator precedence, where operators like multiplication and division has a higher priority than addition or subtraction. So when you evaluate this statement, you will first evaluate 5 into 2, which is 10, and then you will say 10 plus 10, which is 20. Let's execute to verify this. Now, operator precedence in Python also works the same way as it does in math. The only thing is that you can change this using brackets. So for example, if you want to execute 10 plus 5 first, you can just put this in brackets, and then 10 plus 5 will be executed first, after which it will be multiplied by 2. So let's just verify this again, and you can see that it has been done. Now, you've already learned what arithmetic operators are in Python. Up next, we have another set of operators called as comparison operators. Let us see what it does. Suppose I write 3 greater than 2. If I execute this, it will produce a Boolean result, which means it will tell you whether 3 is greater than 2 or not. This operator that we have over here is called the greater than operator, and this belongs to a set of operators called as comparison operators. You also have greater than or equal to, you have less than or equal to, you have equals. Now don't compare this with the assignment operator, alright? This thing is checking for equality. It is checking if 3 is equal to 2 or not. So if I execute this, it will tell you it is false. Now one more operator that we have over here is the not equal to. This will check if something is not equal to something. Now 3 is not equal to 2, and that is why this will return the Boolean value true. So to summarize, we have the greater than, we have greater than or equal to, we have less than or equal to, we have equality, and not equal. These operators combined make up the comparison operators. Now that we are done with comparison operators, we have another set of operators called as logical operators. Now to demonstrate this, let me first declare a variable, age equal to 25. Now let's apply some logical operators to it. We'll first say age greater than 10 and age less than 30. Make note that the AND word over here is the logical operator. So now we have age 25 must be greater than 10 and age must be less than 30. So if you execute this, you will get this as true. The thing with AND operator is that both the left side of the operator and the right side of the operator must be satisfied. Another thing we have is the OR operator. Now for this operator, either the left side of the operator or the right side of the operator or the entire equation must be true. Let us demonstrate this. We can have age equal to 5, and then if we say this, and then if we come to the equation, you have age greater than 10, which is false, or you have age less than 30. Now, age is definitely less than 30, right? So this equation must be true. There we go. The last thing is the NOT operator. Let's just put it like this. If you use the NOT operator, it will give you the inverse of the result that you were going to get. So let's just say this. Age equal to 5 and age is greater than 10. So this is false, right? But if you use the NOT operator over here, the result will still be true. Now, you can obviously inverse this and test the result again. So, to summarize this, you first have the AND operator, where both sides must be true. Then you have the OR operator, where at least one side must be true. And then you have the NOT operator, which will give you the inverse of your result. Now let's look at if statements. We use if statements whenever we want to make a decision in our program. For example, if we have something like, say, temperature, based on the value of that temperature, we can make certain actions. Let me show you. Let us first declare a variable called temperature equal to, say, 40. Now, based on this value, I can take certain actions. For this, I will start with writing if, which is a keyword, and then you write temperature greater than 30, and then a colon, and then you type enter. You see over here, if you observe what you have done, you have first written an if statement and then used a conditional statement to check if the temperature is above 30. Now, a colon in Python is used to segment a block of code. If you see our text cursor over here, you can see that there are a few spaces behind it, right? This is what we call an indentation. In Python, if you indent a particular piece of code, it will belong to the previous statement. This is similar to using curly brackets in languages like C, Java, etc. So be very careful as to not put unnecessary indents in your code. Now, for our condition, let us say if temperature is greater than 30, we'll print, say, it's a hot day. You can see that I have written this string in double quotes. This is because I have a single quote in the word it's. So if I put single quotes over here also, then Python will think that you are just making a mistake while writing. So double quotes over here, and let's continue. As I told you before, since you put a colon over here, everything below that colon is treated as a block of code. So as long as this indent remains, this block of code will be executed only if this condition is true. Let's add another statement over here. Let's say print, it's time for cola. After this, we can come out, and if we execute this statement, you can see that it's hot day and it's time for cola. Now, know that you can add as many conditions as you want to. Now, what if this value was less than 30? Let's say 29. What would happen then? Nothing happened, right? This is because the condition was proved false, and that is why these statements didn't get executed. Remember that you can add as many conditions as you want, and all you have to do that is type elif, and then you can come up with another statement. Say if temperature is less than 30, then print It's a nice day. You can also go ahead and write if temperature is less than 10, then print that it's a cold day. You can also add a statement saying print done over here. You should remember that this statement doesn't belong to any condition, so it will be executed no matter what happens. So if you execute it now, you can say it's a nice day and done. Great, right? Now let me ask you a question. What if I asked you to print the numbers 1 to 5? How would you go about by doing that? Obviously, you say print 1 and then print 2, print 3, print 4, and then print 5. But I'm telling you that this approach is wrong. The reason is because I asked you to just print from 1 to 5. But what if I asked you to print from 1 to 100 or 1 to 1000, million, billion perhaps? Would you go about the same way writing it down individually? Obviously not, right? That's a very time-consuming task. So to handle that, we have something called as loops. And the first kind of loop that I want to talk about is the while loop. Let me show you how you can start using it. The first thing that you do is start with a variable and assign it the initial value of the sequence that you have. For example, I have given I equal to 1. After that, I will type the while keyword, and then I have my conditional statement. While I is less than or equal to 5, and then colon, after which I get a block. Over here, the first thing is I have to print the number, right? So print I, and then we will need to start increasing the value of I by 1. So let's say I plus equal to 1. This will start incrementing the value of I by 1 every iteration. If you don't put the statement, then it will print the initial number until your computer runs out of memory. So now let's just run this, and you can see that your output has been printed over here. Now, you can also change this into, say, 1 to 100 or even 1000. Remember that if you want to increase readability of your numbers, you can always separate it by an underscore. So this is like 1, 000. So now we have the output 1 to 1000. You can also print interesting patterns using this. Let me show you. If you type the same thing and then say I multiplied by a string, you can give it any value that you want. And then if you execute this, you can get patterns. You can see that you've got a triangle over here. What this is a string operation. Basically, you can multiply strings in Python. So if you say I equal to string and then I has the value 1, then this will be printed once. And if I equal to 2, it will be printed twice. I equal to 3, then it will be printed thrice, and so on. Earlier in the video, I introduced you to the data types in Python. This included numbers like integers, floating point variables, strings, and boolean. Now these data types are something that we call as basic data types in Python. There are also some complex data types, and one of them is called lists. A list is nothing but a group of objects. Let me show you how you can do this. First, you will start with the variable name. Let's just say we are doing a collection of names. So our variable name is names, and then equal to, and then we have square brackets. These square brackets represent a list. And now inside this list, you can write down a bunch of names. So let's say Elton, and then you have Sam, Bob, and Emma. You can use either single quotes or double quotes. It doesn't really matter. Now if you execute the statement and then you call out the variable, you can get a list of all those objects. The interesting thing happens from now. While you call out the variable, you can also call out individual variables. Like say you want the name of the second index. So you have 0, 1, and 2, right? So second index, and you can get Bob directly. You can also give a negative value. Now, what do you think happens if I give a -1? So this is 0, and then a negative value would be the last element of your list. So if you execute this, you must get Emma. And if you do a -2, then it will be the second last element. Now, this is not it. You can also go ahead and get a range of values, say from 0 to 2. What this means is that you will start from 0 and you will print all the elements until you reach 2. Remember that if you execute this, the last value, like the ending parameter, won't be printed. So for example, over here, I have 0, 1, and this 2 won't be printed. See, there you go. Now this is what we mean by list operations. You should also remember that a list doesn't really need to be just a single data type. You can also include numbers, like integers, floating point variables, and even Boolean. And if you execute that, you will still get the same result. Early in this video, I told you how to use string methods, right? This was because strings was an object and objects have methods. Well, the thing is, list is also an object, and list also has many methods associated with it. The functionalities of this include adding an element, removing an element, modifying an element, etc. Let us see how to do this. Let me first declare a list of numbers. Say numbers equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Now we have a list called numbers. Let's see what methods this numbers list has. So we'll type numbers dot and tab, and you can see over here append, clear, copy, count, extend, index, etc. So let us start with, say, append. Now, append is a method that is used to add numbers to the end of the list. So if I say append 6, then my list would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if you type down numbers again and check its values, you can see that you have 6 at the end. See, there you go. We also have another method called as insert. Now, the problem with append is that you can only add numbers at the end, right? But with insert, you can add it anywhere in the list. To use this method, you need to give two values. First thing is the index, second thing is the value of the element itself. So say I want to add a value at index 0 and the value would be 0. Then if I execute the statement and execute it, you can see that 0 has been added. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now sometimes there will be situations where you would like to know whether a certain element exists in a given list or not. So to do that, you can use the in operator. For say, you can write 1 in numbers, and then if you execute the statement, you can see it gives you a Boolean value of true. You also have other methods like numbers dot clear, and this will clear the entire numbers list for you. So if you want to know more about list methods or anything in general, then you can head over to the description given below, and I have pasted a blog link over there. This blog lists down all the keywords, methods, syntax errors, etc. And it can give you an approach as to how you can learn Python. Now I want to cover another looping method called as for loops. You see, sometimes in Python, you will come across situations where you would like to iterate over a list of numbers individually. This is where for loops come into picture. Let me show you. Suppose we have a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what if you want to print them out? You would obviously write print and then numbers, right? That will give you the entire result. But now, what if I asked you to print each of these out separately? This is where you can use for loops. What you will do is start by writing the for keyword, and then you will mention the iterator. The iterator is just another variable name. You can keep it anything. I will keep it as items. In, and now the variable name, numbers, and then colon. And after this, you have a separate code block. And over here, you can say print items. Now, if you execute this, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in separate rows. You can also do this with while loops, but it will just be a bit longer. Let me show you. You'll start with I equal to 0 because that's your initial iterator. After which, you'll say while I is less than len of numbers and then colon. Now, if you're wondering what len of numbers is, len is just a method that will give you the length of your list. After this, you can say print numbers and then give the index. You will also need to increase the value of your iterator for every iteration. You can get the same results, but compare and see which one is more simpler. This is why most of us use for loops for iterations. Now, in this section of the video, we will see at a function called range. So, range is a function that will give you a range of values. Let me show you. You type range and then you pass a value to it. Now, if you execute this, you will see range 0, 5, which means that this range function contains the values 0 to 5. You won't get the actual values itself because this is the default representation of the range function, but you can iterate through this function by using a loop. For example, say for number in range 5 print number, and if you execute this, you will get the number 0 to 4. Note that the index starts from 0, so you won't get the written value over here, but the written value minus 1. Now we can also give two values over here, say 5 to 10. This will return a value from 5 to 10, 10 excluded. So it will be 5 to 9. There you go. You have the values 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can also add a third value over here, like say 2. This is the number of steps it will take per iteration. The default over here is 1. That is why you can get a difference of 1 over here, right? But if you say 2, then it will go from 5 to 7 to 9. If I execute this, there you go, 5, 7, and 9. In this section of the video, we will be looking at tuples. Now, tuples are kind of like lists, but tuples are immutable. What this means is that once you declare a tuple, it can't be changed. Let us see how to do that. You'll first start with the variable name as always. Let's say numbers equal to 1, 2, and 3. Now, till now, you've been using lists, right? And when you do lists, you use a square bracket. But with tuples, you will use round brackets. And once you execute this, you can check for the methods. And you won't find anything like append, remove, etc. You have count and you have index. Now, what count does is, suppose you have two elements of some sort, and you say numbers.count 3. Now you can see that numbers.count has given you an output of 2. What this means is that 3 occurs twice in your tuple. The other method is the index. The index will just return you the first occurrence of a particular element that you ask for. Now, why do you need tuples? Well, I agree that we will be working with lists most of the time, but there are certain situations where you wouldn't want someone or yourself to accidentally change the data in your list, right? That is where you will use tuples. And that is it for this video, guys. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you have any queries or you want some additional content covered, please do leave a comment down below and we will get to it as soon as possible. We also have another full course video on Python, which is a bit longer than this video, but gives a more in-depth introduction to it. So if you're interested in it, do check out the link given in the description.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!